Meron ba kayong application ng Mentimeter? Sino sa inyong meron? Lahat kayo meron?
Meron. Wala po, sir.
Okay, sige. Okay. So first, I just want you to open Mentimeter. Kindly open your Mentimeter and I just want you to input this one. Okay. If I were to ask you, class, what is environmental science? Okay. Just open your Mentimeter. You can answer by, of course, typing your name first. Then before your answer, I want you to include or I want you to input there your name first for me to recognize to whom I to credit the answer. Nagkakaintindihan? Okay ba? Agree ba kayo doon? Okay. So, input nyo yung code na 8253159. Class, are you still there? Hello? Baka wala na akong estudyante.
Hi, sir.
Na-open na ang Mentimeter?
Yes, sir. Open ko lang, sir. Wait.
Okay. Then, ilagay nyo yung code na 8253159 because I want to ask you on how you conceptualize or how do you understand environmental science.
Sir, downloading pa lang po ako ng Mentimeter. Wala po kasi
Oh,
akong
daw. Pwede man sa browser na lang. I-type nyo lang mentimeter.com. Para dili na mag-install anay. Later na lang i-install. Sa browser na lang sa Google Chrome or sa Mozilla or nanong gamit nyo da. Type nyo lang mentimeter.com. Okay na, G. Chris? Nora si G. Chris?
Sir, okay na, sir.
Okay. Sige
Apo.
na, answer na. What is environmental science to you? Na-input na yung code? Hello? Basta nakaturog na kamuda, ha?
Nag-answer na po, sir. Nag-answer na po, sir.
Okay, very good. You can have your answer in one word or in 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 one line or kahit maiksing answer lang, di ko kailangan yung sagot na sobrang haba.
Sir, nag-submit na po ako, sir.
And thank you so much pero walang pangalan. Kanino ba to? Environment. Kanino to? Isa pa lang ang may sagot. Very good. Thank you for your response. According to him or to her, environmental science is that tends to focus on understanding the process that operate the natural environment. This is from Trixie, right? This is the answer of Trixie.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for your answer, Trixie. What about the others? So basically, Trixie has a point that we'll be dealing with on how to understand the different processes and the whole operation takes place in our natural environment. Pwede. Okay? So while the others are still answering, looking for the answers or perhaps conceptualizing on what is an environmental science, let's proceed first, then we'll go back to that activity, okay? So this afternoon, we'll be dealing with the introduction to environmental science. The learning objectives as we go along with the discussion is that you'll be able to classify of an introductory level the basis for chemical and biological foundations of life, identify the environment, ecosystems, and environmental science, design scientific approach, and begin to apply the scientific method. Perhaps these are just a revisit on the concepts because these things are being taught already in your previous levels during your senior high school. May nagpo-pop up sa akin, kindly message your classmates na lang sa GC that I can't accommodate them since we are starting the discussion now. Okay. So the chemical and biological foundations of life, of course, we are talking about the chemical foundations that includes the involvement of the different compounds, different elements, the abundant elements in compound present in our environment. And as to the biological foundations, alam natin yan. What makes up, kagaya ng a certain plant? What makes up a plant? Ano ang meron sa plant? Ano ang meron sa isang living organism? Ano ang meron sa atin bilang tao? Okay? Let's proceed. For the overview of your module 1, the elements in various combination comprise all matter on earth including living things. Because alam natin that the composition, what makes up the earth includes the non-living and the living things. So we are not just considering the non-living things. That includes the air, the rocks, the water, or those inanimate objects or yung tinatawag nating walang buhay na klase na nilalang or anumang klase nakikita natin within the biosphere or within the earth. These things, the carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, sulfur, and phosphorus, these are the elemental composition which are abundant. Tandaan natin class, para hindi natin makalimutan ito, nagbibigay ako ng acronym sa mga estudyante ko. Tawag lang natin dyan, CHON PS. Ano yung CHON PS? C stands for carbon, H for hydrogen, O for oxygen, N for nitrogen, for phosphorus, and S for sulfur. Did you get it? Please type 1 nga kung naintindihan ang CHON PS para madali natin matandaan yung elements which are abundant in our surroundings, in our environment. Abundant ito. Basically, these elements are decomposition na kahalos karamihan nito nasa environment natin yung mga elements na to. Ako ha? Did you get it, class?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Take note with the acronym ha, CHON PS. Okay. The nucleic acids, proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. Itong apat na to, class, tandaan nyo, these four are considered the biological components of science or the biological chemistry of life. Tinatawag na itong biomolecules. The previously mentioned, these are the chemical compositions in our environment. Okay. Biologists must understand these important building blocks and the unique structures of the atoms that make up the molecules, allowing for the formation of cells, tissues, organ systems, and the entire organism. Kasi class, alam natin that molecule that comes from atom as the building blocks of matter and the molecules that compose of a compound, pag nagbuo-buo yan, magkakaroon tayo, there is the formation of cells. I know that you are familiar with the levels of organization, or meaning to say, the system, how a certain organism is that being organized from a single cell. When cells are grouped, we have the tissues. When tissues are grouped, pag damo-damo na tissue, naging organ system. By the way, how many organ systems do we have, class? How many organ systems do we have in the human body? Ilang organ system meron tayo? Sige nga. Hello? Ano ba yung mga organ system natin? Anong ibig sabihin ng organ system? That includes, I'll give you an example. Yes?
Eyes, nose,
Eyes, nose, these are organs.
yeah, ears,
Huh?
Nervous system,
Very good. That's nervous system. What else?
skeletal,
Very good, J. Chris. That's skeletal system. What else? You have skeletal, you have nervous. What else?
Digestive system.
Huh? What was that?
respiratory system, sir.
Yes, that's
Digestive
respiratory
system.
system. What else?
Digestive system, sir.
Digestive system.
Endocrine, sir.
Endocrine system. All in all, ilan meron tayong system? Ilan ang system natin? Sige nga, makakapagsagot. Ilang organ
Solar
system meron?
system.
Hoy, anong solar system? Lucky. Bagan mabatsok ta ikaw sa solar
11
system
po,
yan.
sir. 11.
Sinong
11 po, sir.
7? Ha? Sinong may sabing
11.
11?
Ako po, sir.
You are?
Arjan.
Arjan. Okay, Arjan got it correctly. Now, class, meron tayong 11 organ system. Very good. Memorize ba natin ang 11 organ system? Madali lang, class, itandaan na aton organ system. Panitan nyo lang ang aton lawas pag imagine. Pag skin, nano na system ina? Class, when we are talking about skin, our hairs, our nails, ang aton kuko, ang aton buhok, ang aton panit, nanina na system. That is integumentary system. Duro-diretso na, muscular, sa aton muscle, sa bukog, skeleton. So, pagli naman sa ulo, you have the brain, you have nervous system. Pababa, irong, you have the respiratory. Pababa, you have esophagus, you have the stomach, you have digestive system. Then sa sulod, you have the heart, you have cardiovascular or the circulatory system. Pababa, sa may puson, that's urinary system. Pababa pagid sang puson, you have the testes, you have the testicles, you have the ovary, nano na ina siya na system.
Reproductive system.
Na aram-aram ang reproductive system. That's reproductive system. Very good. Pakadagdag sa medyo complex. The so-called the hormones. wherein it gives us different processes in our body that aids in the chemical reaction. That is, yung may hormone, that is your endocrine system. And when we are
Yes, sir.
sick, pag may sakit kita, we have the response and immune system. All in all, we have 11. Okay? And in entire human organism. Okay. Let's have this one. In terms of the composition, in terms of percentage present in the biosphere, the atmosphere, and the lithosphere. Mapapansin nyo, oxygen is always present in terms of its quantity. Napakalaki ng presensya ni oxygen sa biosphere natin, sa atmosphere, and sa lithosphere. Pag sinabi nating biosphere, it's within the area, within the layers of the earth, of the space, or I mean the earth, within the na kung saan all of the living organisms inhabit, or kung saan lang nabubuhay yung mga living organism na tinatawag natin. That's the biosphere. Majority na present na chemical is that the oxygen or element. Sunod sa kanya ay ang carbon, the hydrogen, the nitrogen, and the phosphorus. So, yung tinatawag ko kaninang na CHON, PS. Tandaan nyo lang, that's OC, H, and P in terms of its percentage composition. Same thing with its composition in the atmosphere. Malaki pa rin ang percentage ni oxygen and even sa lithosphere. Unlike phosphorus, sa biosphere, trace elements lang siya. Ibig sabihin, rare siya makita. Okay, bibihira lang. Okay? Same with carbon, hydrogen, pagdating sa atmosphere and lithosphere. Let's proceed. In terms of the structure of atom, as what I have made mention a while ago, that atom is the smallest unit of matter that retains all the chemical properties of an element. In other words, class, when we are referring to atom, it cannot be broken down into simpler means. Hindi na natin siya mabrulag kasi that is already the smallest unit of matter. Okay? An atom is composed of two regions. Meron siyang dalawang regions. Alam na alam nyo na to. The first one is the nucleus, which is in the center of the atom, and it contains the protons and the neutrons. And the outermost region of the atom, which holds its electrons in orbit around the nucleus. Can you imagine? Ito mismo, itong nagmo-move na GIF dito sa gilid.
Yes, sir.
This is actually the representation of an atom. So within the centermost region is that the nucleus wherein dito nakapaloob ang protons and neutrons. Ano nga ang charge ng proton? Alam na alam nyo to.
Positive.
Wow, galing. It's the positively charged. Positively charged. And neutron is
The negative.
negative kanyan.
Uncharged.
Zero.
Equal.
Zero charge. No charge.
Naku, mapabatsyok naman sang iyo negative, ha?
Equal charge.
Okay, so neutron is a neutral charge. Ang negative natin ay si electron.
Electron.
Electron pala. Okay, that surrounds the entire region or within the nucleus. Etong nagmo-move dito sa gilid, that is actually the electrons. Okay, proceed. Atom contains protons, electrons, and neutrons. Among other subatomic particles, the only exception is hydrogen. If you revisit the periodic table of elements, at the first in the atomic number, sa first column natin, we have the alkali metals. Sunod natin dyan is alkali earth metals. In the alkali metals, sa pinakaunang column, doon natin makikita ang hydrogen, where it has been considered an exempted one in terms of its composition of the proton and neutron. Why? Because it is made up of one proton, one electron, and without neutrons. Okay, take note that that's only the hydrogen. And will not be go deeper on that. I am just presenting to you the composition, what really comprises the living organisms in our environment. Let's proceed with molecules, because right after atoms, you have the molecules in the levels of organization. Excuse me. In other words, when we group the atoms into one, we formed molecules, because these are formed when two or more atoms join together through chemical bonds to form a unit of matter. Just like, of course, the combination of carbon. When carbon is bonded with another elements, or there are hydrocarbons or presence of of presence of carbon and without carbon. Okay? Carbon composition. Ito yung pinag-aaralan natin, especially in the engineering field. They go deeper on this. Magagaling sila dito because they are studying organic chemistry and inorganic. Okay? Kasi sa inorganic, that includes of course, the hydrocarbons. Sa organic chemistry, that involves the carbon. Okay? Let's have first the carbon. The basic functional unit of life is a cell. Alam natin yon, di ba? Pag sinabi natin what is a cell, that is the basic structural functional unit of life. Because a life cannot exist according to the cell theory that every living organism consists of a small basic functional unit of life, and that is a cell. Lahat daw ng klaseng organism nag-occur or they possess or they have this very small unit, functional. Why functional? Because from a single cell, there is in the fusion of two cell, here comes now the production of a new or yes, production of new organism. Cells are made of many complex molecules called the macromolecules. This has been mentioned a while ago. Sabi ko sa inyo, yung macromolecules na present sa atin, such as the proteins. I know that you know already proteins. On what are proteins? You have nucleic acids. That includes the RNA and the DNA. You have the carbohydrates and lipids. Isa-isahin natin yan. The carbon atom has unique properties that allow it to form covalent bonds. Kanina previously made mention that carbon, when a certain element bonds, there's the tendency to bond through a metallic bonds. But carbon has the ability to form through covalent bonding with as many as 4 different atoms, making this versatile element ideal to serve as the basic structural component or the backbone of the macromolecules. Let's have the hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons are organic. Sorry to mention a while ago, nasabi ko na hydrocarbons possess or present in inorganic. Actually, this is inorganic. I mean, nasa organic siya, not inorganic. It's organic, okay? Organic molecules consisting entirely of carbon and hydrogen, such as the methane. Are you familiar with methane? Usually, saan ng present ang methane in the living organism? Ano yung mga nagpo-produce ng methane gas?
Sir, sa poop.
Very good. Sinong may sabi? Sino ito?
Sir, sa waste.
Very good. Sa
Sir,
poop,
ako,
sa
sir.
waste products, sino ka man nga ni? Sino ito siya?
J. Chris, sir.
Ay, di wow.
Sir, si J. Chris.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, that's true. Sa POF, parang may nag-mention ng waste materials, waste product, tama ba? Yes, especially class sa mga
Yes, sir.
ruminants. Especially sa mga large ruminants. Alam niyo yung ruminants? Hindi ko alam ang ruminants. Anong class ang ruminants class? Anong ruminants? Alo, na-google pa. Ruminant class that includes the buffalo, na baga? Ang baka, ang karaba. That is the reason why class. Actually, hindi naman kasi na iniisip natin pareho sang kanding, sang karabaw, sang baka. Pag naghurab sinda sang dinghot, huna naton ang naga-digest, there is the presence of enzyme that has the capacity to digest these grasses. But actually there wasn't, wala. Kasi what resides or ano ito na naka-star sa mga intestines sa mga ruminants, large ruminants are the archaeans or these are archaebacteria. Alam niyo yung archaebacteria, these are uh, ancient bacteria. Eto yun, sila ang nagbibigay nitong methane gases since they are organotrophic in nature. Ano ibig sabihin organotrophic in nature? The presence of the carbon and hydrogen made it possible to digest itong gases. Kaya kung mapapansin nyo minsan, kung nauranan gamay, kag nainita, nag-aaso. Ano pa? Aram nyo ang rice straw? Rice straw ba ina? Stalks. Yan ang pakatapos baga san ginanihan san humay. Class, are you still with me? Rice straw, tama ba? Straw or stalks? Inan pakatapos ang inani, pag tinambak mo ina siya sa makabasanan, pag tinambak mo siya, then nauranan siya, then medyo naglupa-lupa na siyang gamay, mapapansin mo na hawiran mo siya init-init that there's the presence of methane gases in there. And alam natin ang hydrocarbons that ruins it contributes to the thinning of our solar system. Ay, not necessarily the solar system, ozone layer, I mean. Yung, isa siya sa nagko-contribute pagpanipis sa aton, ah, ozone layer. We often use hydrocarbons in our daily lives as fuels. Yan. Like the propane in a gas grill or the butane in a lighter. Amo man ito, methane gas man ito siya. Inan iyo mga ginagamit sa, lalo na inan mga sangyupsal. Sino nagasangyups? Si J. Chris, baga hilig-hilig sa sangyupsal. Ito na yung ginatorn, maprito na kamo. Na ano, J. Chris? Baga borobintay
Sir,
ni
di
si
ako
J. Chris.
sinangaran, sir. Nay.
Bagang borobinta kagid sini sa ano, sa Marilyn's Place. Okay, let's proceed. Let's say biological molecules. Life on Earth is primarily made up of four major classes of biological molecules. Tandaan natin to, class, ha? There are four. Apat lang. There are four biological molecules. Ano ito? Ang minsan, class, tinatawag ang biomolecules na chemistry of life. Ano? Tandaan, ha? Biomolecules or the chemistry of life. Ano-ano ito? This includes carbohydrates, lipids, or lipids. Parehas lang na siya. Proteins and nucleic acid. Let's have first the carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the primary macronutrient that humans consume in large quantities in their daily diet to provide the energy needed in order to support various metabolic processes in the human body. Can you tell me some of the sources of carbohydrates? Bigyan nyo nga ako ng mga sources natin carbohydrates in order
Rice,
for this to give us energy. Very good. The number one
bread,
source. Very good. You have the rice, the bread.
bread,
Ano no?
bread.
The
Noodles. Sir.
noodles?
Basta,
There are some.
basta
Take
wheat
note ka some.
products.
Yes, very good. Wet products. That includes your noodles. Pero ang mga noodles na iba, class, ha? There are some na it doesn't came from the actual source of flour. Dili talaga siya ginawa galing sa pinaka starch. Kasi when a certain food is being prepared from a starch, there's the tendency, or you are sure, you are certain that it is really a source of carbohydrates. It will give us energy. Thank you for your participation. Ayan. It can be found in a wide variety of foods, mostly originating from plant tissues. Depending on the type of dietary carbohydrate and its structure, each one can exhibit varying digestibility properties in the normal digestion system of humans and from the rapid digestion or indigestibility. Kasi may mga cases, class, sabi natin, ay, dili na siya natunawan because carbohydrates that we ingest yung pagkaon naton. There are cases wherein we experience difficulty in digestion, tama? Siguro naka-experience naman kamo sana. Because depending on your dietary requirement. Paiba-iba lalo na iton heavy, light ang built sang katawan. So there's a problem at times. Lalo na si Don may problema sa enzyme kung paano i-digest ang carbohydrates. Carbohydrates that demonstrate rapid digestibility such as glucose and starch. Yan, because these are monosaccharide. Anong ibig sabihin natin ng monosaccharide? Ha? Because monosaccharide is present in carbohydrate. Let's partition the word, class. Let's partition. Pag sinabi sing mono, that is, hello,
One, sir. Only
very
one.
good, only one. Tandaan nyo, class. Mono, that's one. Saccharide, or from the word saccharum, that means sugar. In other words, there is only one.
Sugar.
Very good, naghingaw-hingaw pa. Kasayang, kaganda sa boses mo. One sugar only. That's monosaccharide. And we have also the polysaccharide. Siyempre, pag polysaccharide, that is already two or more. Ano?
Dua.
Two or more saccharides or sugar. Resistant starch and some oligosaccharide. Pag oligosaccharides, Diyos ko, damo-damo na ini siya. And are fermented in the large intestine after undergoing digestion, absorption. I mean, rason kaya naman kay ang iba, may pasabog na kalain sa amoy. May iba man na, bagan, are you getting my point?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Kasi nakadepende sa digestibility sa aton digestive system. Okay, let's proceed with lipids.
Next po, sir.
Lipids or lipids include a diverse group of compounds such as fats, ito, oils, waxes, phospholipids, and steroids that are largely nonpolar in nature. Ano ang ibig sabihin na natin ng nonpolar? Pag sinabi natin nonpolar, these are the steroids or the glycerol kasi parang ano siya, if you could still recall, doon sa phospholipids natin, phospholipid bilayer, di ba parang dalawang tail end siya, na ang composition ng lipids ay fatty acids. Lahat na, basta tanan na oils, you have the fatty acids and the head portion, yung tinatawag natin na glycerol. Basta tandaan yung lipids, lahat ng kinakain natin that includes fats and oils, that's lipids. Okay. Non-polar molecules are hydrophobic. Pag sinabi nating hydrophobic, alam niyo na yan. Pag sinabi nating hydro, that is,
Water.
yes, water. Pag
Water.
phobic or phobia, that's fearing or takot. Kaya,
Waterproof.
waterproof. Kaya kung mapapansin nyo, class, ang lana, baga, sige, i-mix baga sa tubig. What will happen, class, when you mix water and that of oil, ano nangyari?
Malutaw ang lana.
Malutaw.
Ano si mapataasan?
Nakaseparate.
Lana.
Lana.
Very good. The
Oil.
term is
Lana.
there is the separation. Ayun, magpataas or pababa, kalain. There is the separation. Yes.
Separate.
Very good. There is the settling. I like the term. Very scientific term.
Between the oil
You've
and the
made
water.
boka. That's correct, no? There's the separation or there's the settling down of the water and there's the separation of two substance or two involvement includes the water and the oil or the insoluble in water. In other words, dili siya ma-mix, di siya mahalo. These lipids have important roles in energy storage, steel class. It contributes to the energy that we need in order for us to talk, in order for us to work, or in order to us for at least kung ano pang gusto natin himuon. Because energy are very important in our system, as well as in the building of cell membranes throughout the body. Bakit? Kasi pinaka-importante si cell membrane natin, class, kasi within the cell membrane, ano nga yung cell membrane, by the way, class? Could you still recall what is a cell membrane? Cell membrane, recall tayo in your
Sir,
earth
para siyang
para siyang plastic-like.
plastic like a cover sa cell.
Very
Out-
good.
sir.
Very good na tani, pero ka pa. So thank you so much, J. Chris. That is actually a membrane or a sheath. Pero nagigets ko si J. Chris, pero it's not actually a plastic, ha. It's a sheath wherein sheath, ha, na SHEATH, ha. Okay. That covers the entire cell or it makes up or it serves as the protection from the innermost part of the cell of those organelles present doon sa loob ng cell kaysa doon sa labas. Nakuha? Gusto sabihin, si cell membrane din, nagpa-function siya for selectivity. Anong ibig sabihin ng selectivity, class? Kasi tinitingnan niya kung yung papasok ba sa cell ay allowed siya pumasok. Just, ano yung mga dapat pumasok? That includes the ions, charged ions, parehas ang sodium, wherein kailangan natin ng sodium sa katawan. So within that cell, ano kailangan ba si sodium? Kailangan ba si adenosine triphosphate? Kailangan ba si lahat na? Adenosine diphosphate, yung mga composition, chemical composition and compounds na pwedeng pumasok doon sa cell. Yun ang role ni cell membrane. Okay? At doon, si lipids nagfa-function kay cell membrane. Okay. Let's proceed with proteins. Alam niyo na ang proteins. Because proteins are one of the most abundant organic molecules in living system and have the most diverse range of functions of all macromolecules. Kasi class, we cannot stand in our in our framework sa aton pangatawan kung wara ang proteins. Tama? Siguro dili kita makatindog kung warang protein. Hello?
Opo, sir. Opo.
Yes,
Tama po.
sir.
Kaya nano kay tama, Nico? What's in the proteins? Anong meron sa protein? Kaya Nakalakat kita sang straight, dili kita nagalubay-lubay. What's in the proteins? Anong meron sa proteins? Can anybody tell me what's in the protein?
Ang proteins na nagpa-develop sa muscles para
Very good, exactly. May I know your name, please?
Maverick, sir.
Thank you, Maverick. Yes, that is true. The composition of our muscles that involves the myosin and actin. These are protein. So kung na-lacerate ka da, anong gusto bang lacerate? Nasamadan ka dang gamay, nakaritan
Hiwaan.
ka, nahiwaan ka man didang gamay, maski diin, kung diin ka man nahiwaan, ano yun na siya, it will heal, it will go back to its normal state because there is the presence of proteins. Okay? In other words, protein involves the structure. Di ba pag sinabi natin structure, ang pinakapundasyon sa naton lawas, kumbaga sa building, sa mga engineer, ang framework, ano yung statura? Same thing with our system sa aton lawas. Ano? The structural and functional, lahat na dito ng protein sa katawan natin. Ayan, sabi ko kanina, proteins may be structural, regulatory, contractile, or protective. Bakit regulatory? There are regulatory proteins. Pag sinabi natin regulatory class, it regulates. Anong ibig sabihin ng regulates? Normalize niya classes. Like for example, if our glucose level is very high, pagtaas-taas natin glucose level, there's the tendency that our protein might fight back to it. Kailangan, ma-normalize natin ang protein kasi pag grabe na ang protein natin, mapapansin nyo, hala, grabe ang dago-dago ang muscle, tapos ang pinaka-physique, it's not no longer the normal one. And we have the contractile tissue in terms of the development of the different tawag dito, yung sa endocrine system natin, kung ano ba dapat i-produce pag-abot sa mga hormones, and even or protective. Are you familiar with the fibrin class? Fibrin? Alam niyo yung fibrin?
No, sir.
Ang fibrin class, as in F-I-B-R-E-N, fibrin or fibrinogen, pareho lang yan. This is a protective protein. Papaano? Di ba pag nasamadan kitang gamay, di ba madugo?
Okay, sir.
Ganun talaga. Pag nasamadan ka, madugo. You will wait for a couple of seconds perhaps or a couple of minutes. Then right after that, di ba nag-stop na siya? Nag-stop
Yes,
siya
sir.
because with the presence of fibrinogen and that of the thrombocytes or yung platelets natin. Hali sa aton system, different parts sa aton stem cells nagadaralagan na ina, not necessary, not literally nagadaralagan ha. It will travel kung diin idon area na nasamadan ka, ma-travel ang fibrinogen kag ito nasamadan ka dito sinda ma-intact or pupunuan ninda ito para dili mag-flow an blood. Aram niyo naman bagaan ang structure sa blood, di ba? Microscopically, ang structure sa blood, di ba para siyang disc-like structure?
Yes.
Yes, para dili na siya makalabas sa aton skin, babarahan inasan fibrinogen, which serve as the protective protein. It can be also a storage or membranes, or they may be toxins or enzymes. So we have so many different types of proteins actually. Each cell in a living system may contain thousands of proteins, each with a unique function, and their structures like their functions vary greatly. Paiba-iba sila. Kasi kanya-kanya sila may trabaho. Kagaya rin sa atin, even we humans. As a teacher, you have your job. You have your qualification. As an engineer, you are responsible for your job. Or you build buildings, you develop machines. As teacher, you are responsible for education, for the learnings of the student. Same thing with the protein. Ang tinatawag natin na hemoglobin. Saan natin makikita ang hemoglobin nga?
Sa dugo.
Very good. Sa diin?
Blood.
Sa dugo.
Sa dugo.
Blood, sir.
Ayos na masyado pag-pronounce sa kay baga nagahingaw-hingaw tapos kalain sa bungol si sir.
Dili siya
Baga
sa sabat, sir.
Okay lang. There's no problem at that all. That's true. It's a regulatory protein present or that carries. Anong ginadara sa hemoglobin nga?
Blood.
Oxygen.
Very good. It's the oxygen, not the blood, ha?
Blood cell and
Galing.
hemoglobin.
Very good. It's the
Blood cell and
oxygen.
hemoglobin.
It carries oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. Ang gagaling ng estudyante ko. Okay, proceed tayo sa nucleic acid. Nucleic acid ha, pang ilan na to? Ano yung una natin? You have?
Carbohydrates.
Very
Carbohydrate,
good. You have carbohydrates. Pangalawa?
lipids,
Lipids. Very good.
Lipids.
Pangatlo, you have proteins. Pang-apat, nucleic
protein.
acid. Okay.
Yes.
Sa nucleic acid class, these are the most important macromolecules for the continuity of life. Anong ibig sabihin natin, class, na continuity of life? It includes what? Ano ang meron dito sa continuity of life?
DNA.
Very good. That's the DNA, the
Ano,
blueprint of life.
hereditary.
The Siyempre, pag may DNA, in order for our lives to continue, there is what? Involvement of two. Anong tawag natin doon? Para dalawa na pinag-isa. Anong tawag doon? That's very good. That's reproduction. Galing. May I know your name, please?
Maverick, sir.
Maverick. They carry the genetic blueprint of cell and carry instructions for the functioning of the cell. Kasi in order for our lives to continue, syempre kailangan sing reproduction. There should be the coital activity of a certain organism in order to produce a new offspring. Okay, in order to perpetuate life. Okay, very good. The two main types of nucleic acids are deoxyribonucleic acid and the ribonucleic acid. Ito yung dalawa, tandaan niyo lang class, nasa yung nucleic acid pala, dalawa lang. It's the DNA and RNA. Anong pagkakaiba ng dalawa? Pag sinabi class na deoxy, pag daw from the prefix D, di ba sa iyo English, sa affixes na ginatawag, may kitang prefix, sa diin ka ng prefix?
Sa unahan.
Very good, sa unahan. Pag suffix,
Salihan, sir.
sa tama,
Punta. Ano siya?
Filipino na ito, gitlapi, wala na, onlapi, hulapi, gitlapi. Okay. Sa prefix niya na D, that meaning there's none or not. Di ba? Amin ang gusto sabihin sa prefix. Pag oxy,
Yes, sir.
what do you mean by oxy? Gin-shortcut lang siya or gin-cut. That is
Sa oxygen.
oxygen. Gusto sabihin, class, ang DNA, there is the absence of, wala siyang,
Oxygen.
yes, wala siyang
Oxygen.
oxygen. Si ribonucleic acid, meron siyang oxygen. Yun ang pagkakaiba. In at the same time, class. Pag sinabi nating DNA, it is where the genetic material, the information that is being inherited from parent to the daughter cells or to the offspring can be located. Dito nato nakikita sa DNA. Ang ginatawag nato na genetic material. Ranging from single cell from bacteria to multicellular mammals. Pag sinabi nating multicellular, anong ibig sabihin nito? Pag multi, pag sinabing multi,
damo,
Madami.
damo, many. Pag cellular, from the word cellulate, that's a
Many cells.
very good, many cells. Galing. Okay. DNA controls all the cellular activities by turning the genes on or off. The other type of nucleic acid, the RNA is mostly involved in protein synthesis. Okay, again, I just like you to remember that when we are talking about DNA, ang concern lang na DNA is that it carries the genetic information. Si RNA saan lang siya? It involves in protein synthesis. What do you mean by protein synthesis?
Sa pag-create ng proteins.
Very good. When we are going to create different proteins, either myosin, actin, fibrinogen, and other types of protein. If we're going to create proteins, the nucleic acid responsible in the creation of that one is the ribonucleic acid. Now, if I were to ask you, saan nangyayari ang protein synthesis in the sa cell? In what part or what organelle is responsible for protein synthesis? I am referring to the organelle, ha? I am referring to the organelle. Pag sinabi nating organelle, it is a subcellular matrix that performs specific functions present within the cell. Ha?
Di man sa cytoplasm. Dili man sa cytoplasm. Di banda.
Dili sa cytoplasm, sa diin.
Mitochondria.
Mitochondrion is responsible for the production of energy. It's the powerhouse of the cell, and it's not.
Sa
Recall. It's the
vacuum.
Vacuole? No. Vacuole is responsible for the storage. Dumping site siya. Dalawa siya. Para siyang nagpapatong. Merong small unit at sub-unit. It's the starts with letter R. It's the RAR ka niyan. The ribosome class.
Yeah.
It's the
Ribosome?
ribosome. Yes, it's the ribosomes.
Ribosomes. Ribosomes. Okay.
Protein
Rib-
synthesis takes place within the ribosomes wherein RNA is responsible for it to produce a certain protein. Now, actually, Chris, we have different types of RNA. Can you name a few? We have three types of RNA. May alam ba
Amino
kayo?
acid.
mRNA, tRNA.
Ah, yes, Maverick. Ano yon?
mRNA, tRNA
Very
na rin.
good.
Ano ba
That
ito?
mRNA. That's correct. What else?
Messenger RNA.
Yes,
Messenger
mRNA.
RNA.
mRNA, that's messenger. What else?
Ito
TRNA,
si
sir.
tRNA.
Very good. The tRNA, that's the
O,
transfer RNA. And what else?
and
Last
transport.
one.
Ano sa isa?
That's
Hmm.
rRNA. Okay? That's ribosomal.
Replicate.
No,
Ribosomal pala
ribosomal
tama.
ribonucleic acid.
Ribosomal.
Actually, class, that's the process. In protein synthesis class, di ba, in terms of helical structure, di ba ang DNA natin, single
Yes.
or double?
Double helix and DNA.
Very good. Double helix ang DNA. What about si RNA?
Single
Single.
strand lang.
Single. Kaya walang magagawa si RNA kasi single lang talaga siya forever. Si DNA, kahit na nagsiseparate si DNA, nagsiseparate siya but still, babalik at babalik siya kasi double-stranded DNA siya. Nakuha?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Now, once na nag-split si DNA class, nag-split si DNA, si RNA is responsible for copying yung mRNA. Tapos si
Yes.
transfer, siya ang madara.
The replication method.
Opo, diretso na sa central dogma of life. Okay? Proceed tayo.
Okay.
Let's proceed with biological organization. All living things are made up of cells. As what I have made mention a while ago. The cell itself is the smallest fundamental unit of structure and function in all living organism. Ito na ngayon, class, yung pinag-uusapan natin. You have the individual organism, or that's the organism. When organisms are grouped into we're grouped, we have the population, and you have the community wherein a population interacts or having an interaction with the other group of population. Then, a community, group of community ngayon, meron tayong ecosystem wherein meron na ditong fish, you have the grass, the rocks, the jellyfish, and kung ano pa yan, nung klaseng organism pa yan. And the large ecosystem, tanda natin, large ecosystem, we have now the biome. Okay? Yung biomes natin, alam natin yan. You have the tundra, savanna, and anyway, dadaanan natin yan. The tundra, savanna, desert, tropical rainforest, and so on and so forth. Let's say biological organism. In most organisms, these cells contain organelles which provide specific functions for the cell. Nasabi ko na kanina kung anong organelles. Kagaya nung minensyon natin, cytoplasm, cell wall, those are organelles. As its definition, pag sinabi nating organelle, it is a subcellular matrix. Pag sinabi nating subcellular, ibig sabihin, ato pa siya sa sulod sang cell. Okay? Living organisms have the following properties. They are all highly organized, all require energy for maintenance and growth, and all grow over time and respond to their environment. All organisms adapt to the environment and all ultimately reproduce contributing genes to the next generation. And some organisms consists of a single cell and others are multicellular. Can you name a few of those single cell? Ano yung mga single cell natin?
Bacteria? Ano ba?
Bacteria. Yes, that's a single cell. A bacterium, that's correct. What else? Gagaling nyo naman. Parang hindi ako nahihirapan mag-discuss. Thank you very much. Okay, single cell, you have the bacteria, the archaeans. Are you familiar with archaeans? Ito mga methanogens, thermococcus, and you have also, there are some, meron tayo class sa protista kasi, or yung protists. There are organisms or there are protists na especially ang plant-like and animal-like na single cell. Are you familiar with Entamoeba histolytica or yung amoeba? Ito,
Amoeba.
opo, alam niyo yon na pag nainom na ito nagkakaigwakatasin, amoebiasis.
Diarrhea.
Yes, diarrhea or dysentery ang tawag natin. Ito nagabawas sin hala may gunagid sin naga bloody ano na
Yes. Dysentery.
Dysentery. Opo, dysentery. Or pag sinabi nating organisms, these are individual living entities. And for example, each tree in a forest is an organism. Of course, sa forest, ang usad na tree, ginatawag natin siyang organism. Single, ang usad, na puno sa forest, that's organism. Basic definition for you. And all the individuals of a species living within a specific area are collectively, pag sinabing collectively, all of those trees, we call that as a population. And populations fluctuate based on a number of factors. Nagpa-fluctuate, in other words, class, in terms of its reproductive success. Paano sila nagpaparami ng organism or ng species? Depending on the seasonal, either seasonal, yearly, changes in the environment and natural disasters such as forest fires and volcanic eruptions. Because these are the phenomenon present in our environment na might affect, di ba? Nakaka-affect siya on the organization of the different organism. Kasi katulad niya, yung mga previous years, yung nangyaring sunog sa ano yun, sa Australia, sa Amazon forest,
Area.
yes, nakaapekto ito sa development sang organisms na present dito. When we're referring to community, it is actually the sum of populations inhabiting a particular area. For instance, all the trees, all the insects, and other populations in a forest from the forest community. And the forest itself is an ecosystem. Now, what is an ecosystem? Consists of all the living things in a particular area together with the abiotic. Pag sinabi nating abiotic, that is
Walang buhay.
very good,
Non-living.
lifeless, non-living things. These are non-living parts of the environment such as the nitrogen in the soil or rain, water, the rock. And the highest level of organization is the biosphere. It is the collection of all ecosystems and it represents the zones of life on Earth. Yun yung sinabi ko sa inyo. Pag sinabi natin biosphere, itong zones lang, an area lang na wherein life exists. It includes land, water, and even the atmosphere to a certain extent. Ito yung pinag-uusapan natin for the summarized one. You have from the bottom part, you have the molecules, and when once molecules are grouped, you have water, DNA. Pag rinupan molecules, you have the cell. Pag rinupo ang cell, you have the tissue, you have the organ and organ system. Pag yung grupo siya, mapapansin nyo dito, you have the nervous tissue. Nervous tissue is a tissue, of course. You have the brain as an organ. And once an organ is grouped into different parts different group of organs, you have now the nervous system. Pag rinupo na siya sa usad na individual, you have now the organism. Pag damo-damo na siya na bison, you have the population. And after that, community, ecosystem, and biosphere. That is hierarchical in nature, or they're organized. Let's proceed with environment and environmental science. So viewed from space, Earth offers no clues about the diversity of life forms that reside Earth. Of course, kahit there are so many experts na ang dadaming magagaling na scientists, discoverers, creative thinkers, but still there's the big question that there's no clue on the diversification, the biodiversity present in the Earth. Kasi ang laki ng Earth so vast. The first forms of life on Earth are thought to have been microorganisms that existed for billions of years in the ocean before plants and animals appeared. Pininiwalaan natin yan. Kaya during our GE7, sa GE7, ang BSIT ngayon, ng GE7 sila, ang BSAB ko, tapos na kami before. Di ba sinabi ni Charles Darwin that in his Darwinian evolution, that life on Earth started 3.6 billion years ago, perhaps. It all started from a single cell, perhaps a cyanobacteria, and there's nagkaroon ng evolution. Divergent evolution, convergent evolution, wherein there's the result of different branches. Yung sa phylogenetic, the mammals, birds, and plants so familiar to us are all relatively recent. Bago lang yan. Na pinaniniwalaan that birds came from Archaeopteryx or yung flying dinosaurs. Di ba? That was before. Okay? Originating 130 to 200 million years ago. And humans have inhabited this planet for only For all 2.5 billion years, and only in the last 200 years have humans started looking like we do today. So there are 7.35 billion people today. The word environment, that's why I asked you previously on how you define environment, and we'll go back that as we finished our discussion. And the word environment describes living and non-living surroundings relevant to organisms. It incorporates the physical, chemical, biological factors and processes that determine the growth and develop and survival of organisms, populations, and communities. Dito lang tayo iikot. Paano sila makapagparami, paano sila lumalaki, and how they are going to survive with a changing environment, considering the physical and chemical biological factors that affects all the organisms in an environment. Okay. Titingnan natin yung environmental history timeline class. 4.6 pala, sorry. 4.6 billion years in 1 hour. Ayan. Ngayon, hindi lang 1 hour. Perhaps a second lang. Titingnan natin dito first cells with a nucleus. Ayan. First cell with a nucleus, you have first multi-cell, the Paleozoic era, yung era na alam niyo na yung Paleozoic, Mesozoic, Cenozoic hanggang sa you have the Ice Ages, first modern man, Earth, Earth's crust, inferred origin of life, the oldest rock preserve, the first fossil evidence, and the first bacterium. Ano? So parang nasa cycle. We're just on the cycle. And this is the reason why believers, scientific standpoint, according to them, that the Earth will go back to its natural state. Ano? At nakakatakot yon. Yung tinatawag natin na succession. Anyway, pupunta tayo dyan. Yung tinatawag nating succession wherein the Earth will have to restore its original state. Kung anong meron, na parang ang Earth ay parang wala siya, walang tao. That was just a belief. Okay? Nababalik siya sa dati. The word environment describes the living and non-living surroundings relevant to organisms, and it incorporates still the physical and chemical one. That's environment. But this time, let's have the discipline or the discipline, the environmental science we're in, we are concerned with. And this is what we are studying. Studies all aspects of the environment in an interdisciplinary way. Kasi kasi maraming field ang involved sa environmental science. Kaya siya tinawag na interdisciplinary. Hindi lang, not just the science alone. Okay. That includes biology, chemistry, physics, statistics. Kasi pag-uusapan din natin ang number in terms of the growth of the population, the logarithmic growth, wherein concern niya si statistics. Microbiology, wherein we are going to dig in. Pag-aaralan pa na-mention natin, the bacteria, the archaeans, the protists, multicellular unicellular. This is the concern of microbiology. And we have also the biochemistry. Ayan, na-mention na natin kanina ang macromolecules or the chemistry of life, the geology, economics, law, and sociology, and some more. There are also some things that we'll be dealing with in environmental science. First, of course, we have environmental engineering. Actually, ang engineering, meron silang separate. This is actually an allied subject, perhaps. Ano sabi? Meron kayong environmental engineering talaga na subject. Doon talaga, madugo ang dito pag-istoryahan. So, environmental engineering is one of the fastest growing and most complex disciplines of engineering. Environmental engineers solve problems and design systems using knowledge in environmental concepts and ecology, thereby providing solutions to various environmental problems, because alam natin that engineers, they are the ones who crafted or created designs, systems in order to address a certain problem presented in the community or in our environment. Magagaling sila doon mag-analyze. Let's have environmentalism. In contrast, it is a social movement through which citizens are involved in activism to further protect the environmental landmarks and natural resources. Ang dami, di ba maraming mga advocates on the preservation and conservation of our environment. Marami. Isa na dyan ang UNESCO in their sustainable developmental goals. This is not a field of science actually, but incorporates some aspects of environmental knowledge to advance conservation and sustainability efforts. Let's proceed with the process of science. Environmental science is a science, but what exactly is science? So, Diyos ko, paulit-ulit na what is a science? Knowledge, the systematized body of knowledge, alam na natin yan. Fields of study that involves scientific method. empirical study. Pag sinabi natin class na empirical or empiricism, what does that mean? We uncover things through what? Yes, Nico? You're raising your hand. Nico,
Po,
you're
wala
raising,
sir na
you're raising your hand.
ano po ito sir?
What do we call by empiricism, or when we do scientific investigation, what do you mean by empirical investigation? Pag sinabi natin empirical, anong meron sa empirical?
Empirical? Refers lang siya sa research conducted sir.
Yes, but yes, of course, it involves in the conduct of the research. That is actually part parcel of an empirical investigation. Thank you so much, Nico. What else?
Based on the Gagel and the research is, a wildlife researcher will go into field observe how animals coexist in a group in a natural setting.
Thank you so much. So ano, alin doon? In other words, pag sinabi natin empirical, involved dyan ang ating, anong involved sa katawan natin? When we observe, hello everything.
Everything.
Okay, class. Pag sinabi natin empirical or empiricism, this is a careful observation with the use of our five senses. Gusto sabihin, lahat ng data, all the observations or the informations that we deliver, that we presented, are all based from what we saw or anong nakita natin, anong na-touch natin, ano yung narinig natin, at ano yung nararamdaman natin based on touch. Kung ano talaga. Okay? That involves ano yung nalalasahan natin. Because these are empirical data based from how our observation exists. Okay? Are you getting my point?
Yes sir.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay, alam niyo na ang hypothesis, of course. In your grade 11, Diyos ko, ginminanimanin niyo na yun siya. Tama? Okay. Hypothesis, an educated guess, suggested explanation for an event which can be tested. Parang you're just presenting a statement or a statement that is in advance. You're advancing. Parang nag-present ka na dahil saying answer dito sa problem na you are supposed to test. When we're referring to theory, it is actually attested already. Tested and confirmed explanation for for observations or phenomena that is supported by many repeated experiences and observations. But take note, theory can still be disproved, so long that you supported it with new novel discoveries. Scientific method, of course, alam na natin ito, the steps. The scientific process typically starts with an observation, often problem. Tinitingnan natin ang problem. Magbibigay tayo ng hypothesis. Mag-gather tayo ng data. Mag-experiment tayo. Then what? We communicate result. If hypothesis is not supported by experimental data, a new hypothesis can be proposed. Totoo yan. This is the reason why, di ba nagkakandak na kayo ng research? I mean, you experienced already conducting a research, right?
Yes sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
that's a very good indication, very good answer that you experience how to create one, how to craft one.
Yes sir.
Just like this one, okay? Monday morning. Ayan. Second hypothesis might be the classroom is warm. So, syempre, yung mga possibility, masabi, nano kay malamig ang classroom? Nano kay malamig? Nano kayang igwa? So, pwede ka okay. Scientifically, because nagbaba ang temperature, that's one possibility. Okay? Maski sa jowa.
Yes.
Sa jowa nyo, class, madali gamito ng scientific method, promise. Yes, that is
Yes, sir.
true. Oo. Ako, personally, I applied scientific method sa, syempre, actually, sorry lang, wala gali akong jowa. Hey,
Mhm.
Itay nila kay
yes.
Luis.
How sir? How?
Kunyari your problem is, ala na daw kay wala niya ako ginsugat-sugad. Igo man kami or na kay kalamig niya sugad, dili siya nagat-chat. That is your problem, tama? Di ba that's the first
Paano, sir?
first
Orasan melty.
that's the first part, that's the first
Sunflower.
part. First step in scientific method. Kasi ano kay wala niya ako wala siya nagaparamdam like this one. Of course, sige, maghimo kan hypothesis. Nano kaya? Siguro gimpabulig ni
One
mama niya
melty.
gimpabulig ni mama niya. O siguro dahil wala ko siya natatagaan melty. Or siguro dili ko siya ginasuyo. Those are your hypotheses, tama?
Yes sir.
Yes.
Those are your tentative explanations to your Problem. Then, you observe. You gather data. You experiment. Sige daw, i-observe ko daw siya. Either, papano, tagaan ko ba siya sin price, sin burger, or nano, melty. Gintagaan mo siya. Ah, okay. Ginpansin niya na ako or nagparamdam na siya. So, that time, you can now conclude, ah, okay. Or base naman pinabulig siya, ah, naaraman, ah, okay, gimpabulig gali siya sa indabalay, kaya dili siya, wala siyang time sa akon, nagapanglamig siya. So, you follow the steps of scientific method.
Yes.
Realistic siya. Okay? Kasi maganda mag-scientific method class sa relasyon. So much for that. So we have also the variable class. Importante ang variable. Pag sinabi natin variable class, eto tong talagang tinututukan natin sa research natin or in a certain investigation wherein any part of the experiment that either it might change or magbabago siya during the experiment. We have
Yes.
independent and dependent. Alam na natin yan. Pag independent, a variable that is manipulated throughout the course of the experiment. Pag dependent, there's the change on what you are manipulating. Okay? Ideally, all changes that we measure in the dependent variable are because of the manipulation we made to the independent variable. So in most experiments, we'll maintain one group kasi meron pa tayong control group or yung mini-maintain natin that this one, I am manipulating this experiment. Sabihin natin, in a scenario, just like in an educational field, kunyari, usad na estudyante, wala, ginatukdoan ko lang normal lang, napagatukdo, chalk and board, chalk, board, libro, ang lang ina. Then ang usad, nagamit akong video, nagamit akong ergosanis. So those changes, pwede ko makita, okay, amin ang akong dependent variable. And ang control group ko, idon, wala lang, the usual one. Even in the graph, pag nag-experiment ka mo nag-research ka mo idon in highly equipped, kitaon ko nga niyang developments sa coffee or reaction of coffee into kung paano siya sa ribuhon an coffee an kape na or an mung beans or an munggo mismo idon mga leguminous plants na ginasaribo sang tubig idong usad ginasaribo masang coffee so makikita mo you can determine there your variables that what might change your that's your dependent variable and the one that you are manipulating the coffee and the reaction of the plant is that your independent variable and the one you are looking with is your controlled one, wherein you are just watering it with a normal water, of course, tap water, industrial water. Okay. It contains in every feature of the experimental group, of course. This is actually classed the ladder on how we conduct investigation. Okay, kagaya na sinabi ko kanina. Kung si Jowa mo dili ka na ginapansin kay maluya ka man, make an observation. Maluya ka man umaksyon, make observation. O kung girl ka man, kag si jowa mo na boylet, way naga asikaso, make an observation, base igwa na gali. Ano, may mga, igwa ba kita da, sinong ari din na participants ta na Eli?
Si Aramina, si
Wara na, puro na inilalaki. Ray,
Natalie.
Nico, Maverick, G. Chris, si Aramina, okay. Halimbawa, Aramina, kaganda sa pangaran. I admired your name. Halimbawa, Aramina, hala napansin mo, naninis siya kay kalmado na ini na akon kaupod sa pagtuod. Make an observation. I-observe daw siya kung matiano na. Kasi di ka na gina-text, dili ka naman lang gina-good morning, dili ka naman gina-happy lunchtime, dili ka man lang ginasabihan sa, asikas or whatever. Ask question. Kapalit-palit ba ako?
Aha.
Kung nga dayon sa kadiri mo. Ano? And form a hypothesis that answers the question, kapalit-palit ba ako? Okay. So, kailangan ko manggali mag-aura. Ano?
Ako nga, Aramina,
Kailangan
ako
ko
lang.
mag-aura. You form your hypothesis. Then make a prediction based on the hypothesis. Siguro nga, sabi ka na, siguro kung nag-do-ay man ako, mag-aura man ako, basi mapansin na niya ako. Then do an experiment. Sige, pag do-ay di kag pagpasad-pasad sa iya. You do an experiment to test your prediction. Ano? Sige, nag-aura ka na, nag-do-ay ka na. Oh. Then you observe, makikita mo na kung anong reaction sa niya. You analyze the result. Kita mo kung tama ang imo hypothesis. Pag wala nagsakto, since ang hypothesis mo is kapalit-palit ka, but ang result is that wala talaga dili ka pinalitan ka talaga niya, so your hypothesis is correct. Oh, conclude ka na, report your result. Okay, this this experiment is no longer accepted, dili talaga po pwede, talagang kapalit-palit ako. Pero kung pag-abot didi, pag-abot mo sa hypothesis incorrect siya, ay tinanggap ka na, pinansin ka na, kaya nag-aura ka, you go back to your hypothesis, try again. Okay, your hypothesis can be changed. Ano na ngayon ang hypothesis mo? That would answer your question. Okay. Na kaipuhan mo lang gali mag-aura kag magduay para pansinon ni o kung sino man. Okay?
Nico.
Ni Nico, kadali man. The scientific method consists of a series of well-defined steps. If a hypothesis is not supported by experimental data, a new hypothesis can be proposed. Okay? Tandaan niyo yan ha. Hypothesis can be changed as well. There are precautionary principle class ha, maging mapagmatsyag kita. The precautionary principle or the precautionary approach is one perspective on environmental risk management. The precautionary principle states that when the health of humans and the environment is at stake, it may not be necessary to wait for scientific certainty to take protective action. Pariusan, ba may ginatawag kita na human quality control or human control. Pareho sa mga engineers, pa-build sila sin cars. Kailangan ng human control sina makita. Alangan ma-experiment kasin. Dili, syempre, matry ka magpadalagan sa sarakyan. Alangan masakay ka da sin tao na you are not certain, maibubutang mo sa ital-ital ang buhay sa tao na dili mo pa sigurado kung ma-function ang sarakyan mo to the point na hasta na nag-experimentation ka, nakabangga pa'y nakagahala, nagkamaratay palugod itong driver, an observance ang sarakyan. Yun ang ibig sabihin ng precautionary principle. Well, nag-experiment naman kita sa mga hayop. Diyos ko, dinudo mo na ang baka, di lang gyapon mo nakukuha ang data na gusto mo. Ano? So what we are trying to emphasize here is that kung nabutang delikado ang usad na bagay, the humans and the environmental, the organisms, it would be better not to continue, not to pursue that study or not to pursue your observation or in. And I think I have come to my last slide class. If you have questions, I would love to answer your queries if you have. Anyway, kindly inform your classmate that this discussion is recorded and they can revisit the video para naman maano nila ang ating discussion. Questions, class?
There's none,
Oh,
sir.
sir.
Questions? Are you sure?
Wait lang, sir.
Okay.
Meron ka, sir?
Pa-open ang camera, please.
Okay pa, okay.
Sana kami bata ka na, G. Chris?
Sir, pamangkin.
Okay. Sige, pa-open ang camera, please. We'll have the documentation.
Zap mo.
O ang camera.
Wow!
Hello, sir.
Sige na, aura. Sige na, aura na, maski. Ngarab.
Na-jerk.
Okay, next week class ha. Module 2 tayo next week. And expected please submit your output please. Parang hindi pa nakakapit-submit ng iba sa ating classroom. Para if possible, I may start checking your output. Ano, para hindi ka matambakan. Mahirapan ka mo. Hinay-hinay lang. Okay po?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Okay na, so much for that. Thank you very much for your attendance, class. I enjoyed the discussion actually. Actually, this is the group. Every time that I have my class in engineering and in other sections, this is the best. Maski gamay-gamay lang. Kuli ako naboboard. Alright, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.